That's 352-639-2777.
Now you did it. Are you completely insane? He's back. He, who must not be named. The man, the myth. The only guy in Ocala to eat his own weight in fried pickles. Twice. Now, you asked for it. Sorta. Live and in person. It's Tom Schmitz.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks with Tom Schmitz on a Thursday morning. Let's go out to the phone lines now and talk to Dr. Huma Haider. She is the founder and CEO of the National Brain Injury Institute. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
I'm very interested in talking to you this morning because I played the game of football from the time I was 5 years old, tackle football, 5, 6 years old, till I was 26 years old. And I have had numerous brain injuries because I've had numerous concussions, probably too many to even remember. And it was 35, 40 years ago when it was different. You know, they just said, what's your name? You told them your name, you can play, get back out there. And now I'm starting to see that sometimes I stumble over my words, and sometimes things that are really easy for me to remember, I just in mid-thought lose that train of thought. Can all of this, can some of these symptoms that I'm suffering be given to brain injury, to brain injury I suffered playing a game of football?
Yes, absolutely, Tom. All of these symptoms that you are describing and that you are suffering from, they are related to the traumatic brain injury that you have suffered for almost a decade. When athletes are playing football or any contact sport, they are not only suffering from concussive, but they're also suffering from subconcussive blows. What it means is that many of those blows go unnoticed and go undetected, but they are causing the brain damage at the microscopic level. Then, yes, absolutely, all the symptoms that you have described are related to the traumatic brain injuries that you have suffered over a period of several years.
How many of the traumatic brain injuries, because anytime your brain bounces around in your skull, it causes a brain injury. How many of those go unreported versus how many go reported?
Yes, that's a very important question. A brain is like the consistency of an egg yolk or a jelly-like material that is enclosed in a bony cavity, which is called the skull. So any violent jarring or shaking of the brain inside the skull will result in the tearing and sharing of the millions of nerve fibers and neurons inside the brain. And as a result, patient will start to suffer from physical, cognitive, and behavioral symptoms. CDC reports about 3 million cases of the traumatic brain injury every year, but in reality, this number is underreported because a lot of patients with TBI, they are not going to the emergency department, they are not going to the urgent care providers, they're not going to their primary care physicians, and as a result, they don't get reported to the CDC. So what happens is that for vast majority of the patients who suffer TBI, they go undiagnosed and they go untreated. As a result, they appear to be physically fit, but they're living with permanent brain injuries that are affecting their personal, professional, and social lives on a daily basis.
Well, what are the most common causes? Because I know I played football. I know what caused some of mine. But for the average person in America or in the world that's not a football player or anything, what's some of the common causes of these injuries?
Yes, it's a very good question again. The most common causes of head injury, number one, is slip and fall accidents, especially in the children and elderly people. The second most common cause is the athletic injury, such as yours that you suffered. And the third most common cause is the motor vehicle accidents. Tom, a lot of these TBIs, the traumatic brain injuries, can be minimized or can be eliminated by using simple safety protocols such as wearing a seatbelt while you're driving, keeping the children in a car safety seat, wearing helmets while playing any kind of a contact sport, and also avoiding driving while intoxicated. So these are very simple safety protocols that if every American employs it in their daily routine, then we can mitigate the traumatic brain injuries that people are suffering on a daily basis.
Doctor, how did you tell me a little bit more about how and why you started the National Brain Injury Institute?
Unfortunately, my husband passed away in a motorcycle accident back in 2010. And at that time, I decided that I wanted to help and treat and care for the patients who have suffered a traumatic brain injury. So having that in mind, I started my advanced specialty training, which is called neurological critical care. So while I was getting trained there and while I was treating patients in neuro ICU, I realized that many of these patients who have suffered a traumatic brain injury, they were discharged from hospitals and emergency departments without any real access to specialized outpatient care or any specialized outpatient options. And these were the patients that needed this much needed diagnosis and treatment for that. So thinking along those lines and seeing the need for it, I founded National Brain Injury Institute in 2018. And here at NBII, we are consistently striving to raise awareness on the chronic nature of this condition that impacts the personal, professional, and social aspects of many Americans on a daily basis.
Well, talk to us about, because I know you're pioneering a treatment, diffusion tensor imaging. What is this technology and why is it so important in diagnosing patients?
Absolutely. Diffusion tensor imaging is an advanced brain imaging technique which has enabled us to see damage inside the brain that we were not able to see prior to this technology for the clinical use. The first generation CT scans, they were not sensitive enough to see the damage that is happening at the microscopic level. But with diffusion tensor imaging, we are able to see the damage that we were not able to see before. Too often, patients with true traumatic brain injury were erroneously dismissed when an MRI scan or the CT scan of their brain was negative. But with the help of diffusion tensor imaging, people who have suffered a traumatic brain injury, we are able to clearly demonstrate that damage exists, and we are able to now provide targeted treatment, rehabilitation, and future care needs for these patients.
Well, tell us if people that are listening to us want to find out more information about traumatic brain injury or the technology we've discussed, where can they go to find more information?
Yes, Tom, they can go to our website, which is www.nationalbrainbii.com, or they can call our toll-free number at 866-983-3167.
Doctor, thank you so much for shedding some light on traumatic brain injuries and all you're doing to help pioneer some techniques that will help better diagnose them in the future. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Tom, for having me.
That's Dr. Huma Haider. She is the director of the National Brain Injury Institute, which she founded in 2018. I suffered a lot of brain injuries playing football. I know a little bit about what the technology they're doing and what they're looking into, because I myself was a victim of traumatic brain injury more than once. So I know a little bit about what she's looking into. Brain floats around up there in a jelly-like state, and it bangs against your skull. It damages the soft tissue of the brain more than it damages the skull. Let me just go ahead and make you aware of that. Coming up next, we'll talk about Jenny Springs and Nestle, what Nestle has gotten permission to do at Jenny Springs, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. We'll talk about that next. This is Ocala Talks on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
USA Radio News with Lance Pry.
Austin police are reporting the Austin standoff suspect was recently diagnosed with terminal cancer and had only weeks to live. 43-year-old Bharat Naromanchi is accused of shooting and killing himself and another doctor inside an Austin, Texas medical center on Tuesday. Senator Tom Carper, the Democrat from Delaware, Wednesday introduced a bill that aiming making Washington, D.C. a state and full representation in Congress. The Washington, D.C. Admissions Act has received support from the Democrat Party, but Republicans say making D.C. a state would probably place 2 more Democrats in the Senate. The vote will need at least 60 votes in the upper chamber to pass, or a simple majority if the filibuster is abolished. Bad news, fellow nerds. Despite computer chip manufacturer AMD's record-breaking 2020, it anticipates PS5, Xbox Series, XS, and PC chip shortages to last at least through the first half of 2021. USA Radio News.
The stress levels of Americans may be at an all-time high. From education to business to basic needs to politics, the 2020 pandemic-related stressors are pushing many of us to near breaking point. That's why you should consider the stress and pain-relieving products from sunny-bay.com, like our lavender neck wraps and pads infused with premium Washington lavender